On this week's video we're going to be exploring Coldrige Valley, which is a dwarven starting zone, and in my mind it's probably one of the better aligned zones on a fun scale, but not so much of a lore relevant scale. Regardless, I'm probably pretty biased because my very first character ever was a dwarf paladin way back in 2004, so the quest and the aesthetic of the zone are just very nostalgic for me. Coldrige is a valley nestled within Dunmoreau. It serves as a supply outpost for young adventurers as well as an aid station for those passing through it in search of dwarven hospitality. You begin your journey as a young dwarf and find your camp under attack by an army of trogs right when you log in and create your character, like right now. So help the mountaineers do their job and clear them out before even accepting your first quest, which is going to be Hold the Line. You'll get it from Jorn Ironstock, who is the captain of the mountaineers in the region, and explains that there was an earthquake earlier today which really sets up the rest of the zone's story. The earthquake, unbeknownst to you, was actually Deathwing emerging from Deepholm and starting the cataclysm. Jorn explains that it has disturbed the local Trog populace and sent them into a frenzy, so he'll need you to go kill 6 of them and assist in holding the front lines. The Trogs and the Trolls will be the natural enemies of the dwarf in this region. The Trogs have discovered that the dwarves are holding artifacts and mining for relics of their ancient past. The Trogs find that as their ancient homeworld, they deserve to hold what's onto the mountain and will fight for tooth and nail to keep their land sacred. Being your very first quest, you should be able to make quick work of the Trogs, especially since you just killed like 50 of them upon creating your first character. Jordan will explain that he has a more important task for you and give you the quest, Give Him What For, which will send you again to kill the Trogs, but this time you're going to go behind the enemy lines to take out 3 of their Rockjaw goons who are coordinating the attacks on your camp. Before you leave, Sten's stout arm shouts at you to get your attention. He too has a quest for you called Aid the Wounded. Unlike Jordan, he doesn't need your blade, but he does want you to look out over the battlefield and find any wounded mountaineers. He will give you a first aid kit to heal 4 of them and get them back in the fight. Apparently mountaineers aren't foot soldiers, they're just more like dwarven forest service that are trained to deal with wildlife and keep them off the road safe for travelers. Return immediately back to Sten first, as that will be the only quest he has for you, but he does hint that you have a future in first aid if you're into that sort of thing in the future. Returning to Jordan will award you with some bracers. He understands that the Trogs are simply fighting for what they believe is their land, but you cannot allow your people to be in danger from such vicious creatures. Speaking of harm's way, he'll mention that many of the camp's civilians have been put up in the side of the mountain bunker Anvilmar, including his wife, Jonah. He will give you the quest Lockdown in Anvilmar and ask that you check on them to see what you can do from them for the inside. Take the path northwest and head inside the cozy interior to find Jonah. When you first find Jonah, she will not pleasantly greet you until you mention that her husband has sent you to help. First things first, we're gonna need some beer as the quest she'll give you, because you need that cliche dwarven drinking quest in the game. She will basically go on to say that a dwarf can't possibly be expected to work without ale in their belly. There are 3 different kinds of beers you'll recover for her: a cask of Theramore Ale, Stormhammer Stout, and Nomerbra. All 3 are odes to areas around the Alliance towns of Azeroth, and it's fun to see them referenced in a casual way. But seeing as retrieving ale may not be the most important task for you, Grundle Harkin, the Armorsmith of Anvilmar, also has a quest called Dwarven Artifacts for you to take. He wants you to capitalize on the earthquake that happened earlier, loosening up the soil around Coldrige, and would like you to seek out any new artifacts that may have been uncovered in the quake. Find 5 of them and return to him promptly. When you return to Anvilmar, head back to Jonah first because she seemed pretty impatient with you about the whole ale thing. Handing in the quest, you'll witness her simply drink some of the return keg, saying that it really hits a spot. Thanks, Jonah. All of the other stuff is her less important task that after beer collecting. Coldrige is in need of some supplies, both food and clothes, which again is less important than ale. She will want you to go hunt the local boars and wolves and collect 3 haunches and 4 wolf hides. Before you depart, stop by Grundle to receive another artifact hunting quest. This time he sends you into the Trog camp, however. He thinks that there are a lot of artifacts that were exposed and were recently scavenged by the Trogs. Killing a scavenger shouldn't be too hard as they're just Trog scouts, and collect the 5 artifacts to return to Grundle. He will give you a chess piece as a reward. He then expects your finds, saying that they are fascinating and appreciates the effort, even though they just appeared to be old arrowheads and ancient Trog weaponry. Head over to speak with Jonah one more time to turn in your quest. She is hopeful that the gathered supplies will help you last until King Bronzebeard can send some aid. She then sends you down the road to Grelin Whitebeard. He is a good friend of hers and may need some help of an able-bodied fighter. Upon finding Grellin's camp, you'll see that there are 3 quest givers who all have tasks for you, so speak to each person and pick them up. Grellin himself will greet you and tell you about the troll menace in the area. The dwarves of Anvilmar have been battling the ice trolls for years now, and now that Anvilmar has to defend itself from the Trog uprising, the trolls are pushing further into Coldrige Valley. He wants you to go thin their ranks and slay 10 of them for him. Trolling for information is a quest you will get from Grellin's apprentice, Soren. He has noticed that there may be otherworldly powers at work with the ice trolls have mystic soothsayers located at each of their camps. He has never been able to get close enough to listen, but he would like for you to try to go stealth at each camp and spy on any activity happening. The gnome Felix Windelbot has her 3rd quest called A Refugee's Quandary. He explains he was on his way to Gnomergan when the earthquake somehow got him turned around and he lost all his belongings to the trolls. And man, that must have been a frickin' magnitude 34 earthquake for that to happen. But regardless, accept the quest and retrieve his belongings from the... And spying on the soothsayers at each camp, you will see that they must be blind, because you don't have to be very stealthy approaching them at all. They're speaking of the end times and how they will summon some frost elemental that will eventually take over the valley for the trolls. You obviously can't let that happen, so return to Grellin's camp and complete your quests. Apprentice Solon thinks Grellin should know about the Soothsayer's elemental summoning. Hand over your findings and receive the quest Ice and Fire. He agrees that what you found on your recon is definitely concerning and wants you to go inside the Ice Troll base and slay Grickner the Cold. Once inside the cave itself, the trolls shouldn't be too difficult to deal with. You can take them out in clusters and head to the back of the cave where you'll find Grickner the Cold. He has not yet summoned the fire elemental, so you'll have time to take him out, and then return to the camp to report your findings that you have slain him before the Coldrige Valley will melt by any elementals that he plans on summoning. Returning to Grellin, a trip to Ironforge will be the last quest that he gives you. He believes that your findings here with the ice trolls are dire enough to give a full report to the officials in Ironforge, which is the dwarven capital city located in Dune Moreau. He points you on the road back to camp and tells you to track down the gnome Hand Sprocket to see if you can catch a ride with him to Ironforge. Unfortunately, right when you find Hans, just like a perfectly timed movie, the cave collapses due to another earthquake. You're left wondering what is going on. Hans suspects there's more at work than just an earthquake, and explains how difficult it will be to monitor the cave now. You try to climb through the rocks, but you're unable to get through. You'll need to find another plan. He gives you the quest Follow That Gyrocopter, and sends you down the road to meet with his gnome companion to see if you can catch a ride with his gyrocopter instead of going through the tunnel. It's always better to go over the mountains than under the mountains, I guess. Milo Gertwinge will give you the quest Pack Your Bags. He sends you back to Jonah for one last time to gather some supplies for him on his journey. He says he has no problem giving you a ride to Keranos, which is the next outpost over between you and Ironforge, but he will need you to gather some supplies on the road as he'll be staying in Keranos for a while. Head back inside one last time to find Jonah and see if she can help you out gathering your things. Don't Forget Us is the final quest that Jonah will give you. She asks you to also send a report to the innkeeper in Keranos to see if he can send any troops or supplies to help Coldrige Valley if Ironforge cannot. Once you have retrieved your supplies, such as your bag and food, return to Milo and the gyrocopter to see if he can fly you over to the next town, Keranos. And once you turn in that quest, you are done with the Coldrige Valley storyline. The Dwarf Starting Zone doesn't have too much to offer aside from fighting trogs and trolls, but it does set up the storyline for Keranos and eventually Ironforge for the Dwarven race. There's a huge backstory and lore revolved around the whole Dwarven idea of their artifacts, and it'll come up definitely later in the questing experience of WoW. I wish that Coldrige Valley approached it a little better and made it more interesting for the player, but you do get a nice view of all of Dune Moreau on the gyrocopter flying to Keranos. With that said, that'll be it for this video, you guys. I try to post a video every Monday and Friday regarding WoW lore. I'm trying to do an alternating thing where it's Horde and Alliance. I didn't get a chance to do this last Friday due to just wildfires in my area, but I do hope to be back this Friday. I'll probably do the Alliance zone again just to make it 2 and 2. But I appreciate any support. Please comment down below if you have any recommendations for this channel, any zones you'd like to see, any zones I missed out on, any quests I've missed out on. Please feel free to comment, give me a like to support the channel, subscribe for weekly updates, and also follow me on Twitch if you like. There will be a link at the end of the video. But with all that said, really love the support you've been giving me, and I appreciate you all. I'll catch you on the flip side. See you later.